Hello everyone, I hope you're all starting a great 2024. My name is Drew, the host of Never Behind. Today I wanted to share the second half of the interview with Michael Vogel, one of the well-known top leaders in the crypto space, who has founded the first cryptocurrency exchange, Netcoin in Canada, and also founded CoinStream in the US, which is a virtual version of the Bitcoin ATM. Also with Michael's passion in entrepreneurship, Michael has founded Encore Ventures as well. Now, if you did not have the chance to watch the first half of the interview, I highly recommend that you watch part 1, since we do have several major events in the crypto space in 2024 that may have a huge impact in both the crypto and stock market, and I'm sure that Michael's insights will be very helpful for your personal investments as well. So with that, let's get right into the second half of the interview. So based on the last parabolic cycles of Bitcoin, and especially with the Bitcoin halving event happening this year, would you be surprised if Bitcoin went over 6 digits per coin during this cycle? And I know it's really hard to predict, but do you actually have an expectation on how high Bitcoin may go at the peak of this cycle, if it happens?
The very interesting thing is, 2024 has two really big events happening, right? There's the ETF news, but then there's also the halving of Bitcoin supply. So the rate of Bitcoins being introduced into the ecosystem will be cut in half in 2024. So there's that and the ETF news. And traditionally or historically, that halving does have quite a profound impact on the price of Bitcoin. There's a bit of a lag, it doesn't happen right away, but it does happen. And if we look at the history of Bitcoin, going back to the beginning, we can see these events over time where there tends to be a halving kind of within a year or so. There is a major rally, and they tend to be correlated. There's an awareness, right? Like crypto traders have been through these cycles before, and they, just as you and I are talking about it, they're also aware of these patterns. So how profound that'll be, we can't say for sure, but we do know that mathematically there will be a diminished supply as a result of the halving. And so that'll have effects on crypto miners in terms of their rewards and how much they cash out. And depending on the market, they may hold on to their coins, and that may diminish the supply even further, right? Why sell your Bitcoin today if it's going to be worth twice as much tomorrow? So if we take that and then we couple that with the fact that these ETFs have to now procure supply for their ETFs, there'll definitely be this demand shock to the system. And so how does that unfold, right? So kind of going back to your question about where does that take us in terms of price? Well, if things do kind of spiral out of control, as we've seen with Bitcoin, there seems to be this environment where when it crashes hard. And when it goes, it goes. So that scenario in 2024 is definitely viable, right? When we see an excess of demand, those coins have to come from somewhere. Yeah, I think, could we see some kind of exuberant bubble or rally with that hockey stick curve? Definitely. But I want to caution viewers, along the way, what tends to happen in previous rallies is there are these pauses where there's profit taking, right? And even after the approvals of Bitcoin ETFs, I wouldn't be shocked to see profit taking where there is sort of a cooling down period for Bitcoin, because everyone's kind of baked it in. Hey, these ETFs are going to be approved. If and when they are, there might be a spike in price, but more likely there'll be some profit taking. That's typically what happens when there is some type of big news in the crypto space. Could we see Bitcoin reach six figures? So I have to decide whether I want to go on record in terms of predictions. I usually don't, and I do want to caution people that Bitcoin is a very volatile asset, and do your due diligence. But myself personally, do I see Bitcoin one day reaching the 6-figure price? Absolutely, for a variety of reasons. That opinion goes back to, I've been in the crypto space since end of 2013, so that's 10 years at this point. But even back then when Bitcoin was trading for sub $1,000, people that really believed in Bitcoin back then were saying, Bitcoin will definitely be above 100K at some point. And even though there's been some horrible crashes and significant rallies, the fundamentals of Bitcoin haven't really changed in the last 10 years, right? Like once you go down that rabbit hole and you understand how Bitcoin works and what it's all about, those fundamentals are unchanged, and everything else is environmental or political in terms of the viability of Bitcoin. But fundamentals haven't changed. Bitcoin, in my mind, is here to stay, and its utility goes beyond price. It's obviously one thing traders want to believe in Bitcoin and hold Bitcoin. They're obviously holding it as an investment. They want to see a return on it. But Bitcoin does have a whole host of reasons why it's good in terms of innovation and social good. It's just sort of this intersection of philosophy, technology, and economics. And so for those fundamental reasons, Bitcoin will continue to be adopted, and those early adopters historically have been rewarded in terms of a rally. But it's very volatile along the way. I can remember many cases where Bitcoin rallied 50% in 1 month and crashed 50% the following month. So that's something that Bitcoiners are very familiar with. And when Bitcoin reaches 100,000, I can't say. But one thing I can say is, based on historical experiences, it doesn't happen in a straight line. So just because Bitcoin is rallying at some point, if we find ourselves in kind of this massive rally, right around the corner is probably going to be some type of crash, whether it's a sustained crash or just a pullback. That's usually the pattern that that we see.
Thanks for sharing this insights. And, it's really hard to predict something, especially when it's reported, but thank you for your opinion. Based on this, parabolic cycle and being in the crypto space, I'm really interested to hear whether you take advantage of the cycle and, trade Bitcoin, or are you a long-term investor and just keep accumulating Bitcoin when it goes down? And one more thing that I was interested, because I'm more into stocks, is do you also invest in stocks that are related with Bitcoin? Like, for example, Coinbase or Hive, or, these stocks as well?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, there's a variety of ways for people to trade Bitcoin if they're interested. So one option is hold Bitcoin. And so the risks and rewards both come with that, right? So if you're holding Bitcoin yourself, it's in your own private wallet. That's the best way to hold it because it's yours. It can't be taken away as long as you have everything backed up. That's good. But the flip side is, yeah, you have to make sure that that password is protected. You have everything backed up. I've been in the Bitcoin space for a long time. I've come across many people that have, in a moment of excitement, bought some Bitcoin, completely forgot about it. Hey, Bitcoin's rallying. This Bitcoin is worth thousands more than when I bought it, and they forget their password, and there's no way to recover that. So that's option one. And so option two is an ETF product, and so that allows you to kind of play along with the ride of Bitcoin and maybe even hold it in some form of tax-free or retirement account, which you can't do typically with Bitcoin. So that's the second way. And the third way is trading Bitcoin by proxy. So there's a number of publicly traded Bitcoin companies, and historically they have, regardless of fundamentals, for better or for worse, a lot of these companies do typically trade as a proxy to the price of Bitcoin. And sometimes that's where people kind of look almost for like an arbitrage opportunity with some of these stocks. It's like, hey, Bitcoin is up, but this stock isn't up. And so I do know people that trade that way. I personally don't at this time, but yeah, it's also a very viable option. And yeah, some people like to trade Bitcoin companies because, it's a new and growing industry. And if you like Bitcoin, then you might like investing in a Bitcoin company even more. That's another way to trade as well. So
do you actually trade Bitcoin as well, or do you just store it as or accumulate for long-term investment?
Yeah, I admire those actively trade Bitcoin. I don't really have the stomach for it, but there are times that I remember in the past. I mean, it's been a long decade where I remember experimenting with that, and it's just one of those things. I admire people that come up with their own trading strategies, and there are people that do. I haven't checked to see if it's still there, but I mean, there were a lot of people that were trading Bitcoin. They were buying in the States and then selling in South Korea because the South Korean exchanges had Bitcoin selling at a premium. And so people were doing arbitrage that way. And so they were kind of trading Bitcoin, but they were kind of more just sort of exposing that arbitrage opportunity and then adding liquidity to the South Korean exchanges. But yeah, in terms of actual like day trading, that tends to not be my focus. I'm definitely what they would call kind of a Bitcoin maximalist. I believe in Bitcoin long-term. On Core Ventures, my company, we buy Bitcoin pretty much every day in varying amounts, and we tend to not sell too often, but that's the sort of pattern that we're following. Bitcoin is very, very volatile. Going back to Warren Buffett, right? Like he himself doesn't identify as a trader, right? He looks at something that is valuable long term and holds on to it. And I know he doesn't view Bitcoin as something that he would get behind, but for the longest time, Apple and tech stocks were something that he felt that way about. He didn't want to invest in something that he didn't understand. And I think that in and of itself is, that's a good axiom to live by when you're trading. And so, yeah, if you don't understand Bitcoin, then yeah, don't buy it, don't trade it. But yeah, learn about it. And then if it's right for you, go for it. And so, yeah, I believe in kind of holding it long term. And yeah, that's sort of what we're interested in at this point.
Thank you very much. I think we covered a lot of topics today, but before wrapping up the interview, I just had a final question that you might be able to answer or you might not be able to, but because you're experienced in the crypto space and you have had actual use cases, can you share some coins or projects that you think actually have a great potential use case in the future and you think has a high possibility that it could survive, in like 10 or 20 years for, people who are beginners or new to the space and only know Bitcoin or Ethereum?
Yeah, that's a great point. So yeah, I'm kind of in a unique spot with my previous company that I founded, Netcoins and CoinStream. We get a lot of data and we talk to a lot of people, and we get sort of a behind the scenes look at kind of what investors think about when they're buying cryptocurrencies. Personally, I've been fairly sort of consistent over the last decade where Bitcoin has primarily captured my personal interest. But obviously, if we look at how Bitcoin has performed in terms of return, there are these altcoins or coins other than Bitcoin and Ethereum that have also seen incredible returns, and many have seen horrible crashes. What typically has happened in the past is investors are impatient, I've noticed. And so what we see is typically what I've noticed is Bitcoin rallies only happen when stock market is also rallying. I've noticed this, and it may not be accurate in every scenario, but certainly in recent years, it's happened. And what I've kind of noticed is investors are always interested in yield. So stock market's doing well, but hey, this Bitcoin thing is taking off. So we'll sort of see some capital outflows from stocks and sometimes even real estate into Bitcoin. Bitcoin will rally, but rally huge. And I've talked to customers over the years where that rally isn't enough. And so they'll sell some of their Bitcoin or all of it and put it in another coin because that coin that went up 10,000% in the last month. That kind of stuff makes me not be able to sleep at night. I've never really experimented with that, but I know some people that have done great. And I know some people that have done really badly with that strategy. And then the flip happens, right? When the crypto market has a bubble or a stiff correction, the first thing people do is sell their riskiest asset, and that riskiest asset in reverse order, or with most risky, would be kind of this altcoin that has gone in this massive rally. People will sell that off, then maybe they'll sell Bitcoin off, and then maybe they'll sell their stocks off and kind of go in that pattern, with like maybe real estate being sort of the last to fall. People maybe kind of, and cash and whatnot, people will go in that direction. So yeah, this is sort of a kind of a long roundabout answer, but I don't want to throw all altcoin projects under the bus because there are some that are working on great things. I don't know enough to give kind of a cohesive answer, but yeah, you can definitely go onto coinmarketcap.com and look at the full list, right? There was a time when it was just Bitcoin and Ethereum and that's it, but there's thousands now, and there's new ones cropping up. But yeah, there were the ones that were completely wiped out in the last cycle, but there's ones that have stayed behind, and there's ones that are working on interesting things with NFTs and other security applications. So yeah, just do your own due diligence and kind of look into that. Yeah, it's just up to each person to kind of decide what's good for them. So yeah, I won't kind of put my name behind any particular coin, just because, I mean, honestly, I don't follow them as closely as I do Bitcoin. So good luck to any traders that are interested in that. Yeah, that would be my answer.
Thank you very much. I think that's a great insight. And I also have a really same opinion on the stock market and the Bitcoin cycle, where I've also kind of researched the pattern. It seems like whenever the stock market is taken off, then it's a risk on market and people want to risk more money into an asset that has more higher yield. And that's when, the Bitcoin parabolic rally usually happens. So, next 2024, this year, I think a lot of people are worried about the stock market crash and all that, but with the Bitcoin halving event happening and with the US, election and all that, I think it's really interesting to see how it will work out. But being more positive on the stock market as I hear about these patterns and theses. So again, Michael, thank you very much. This interview was amazing. And I always learn so much from you when I have these interviews, and I know you're busy, and I really want to appreciate your time on my channel for these interviews. And, when the Bitcoin halving actually happens, or this event happens, I would be more than happy to invite you again and, pick your brain and hear more of your insights on what you think is happening in the market.
Awesome. Yeah, no, it's always a great pleasure. It's happy to come back anytime. Always good fun.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Michael.
Cheers.